Clarence Williams. This is another edition of Now and Then. I shared with you last time about greed versus humanity, that the most important fight that is being had is over greed. It is all about that dollar, it is all about money. And I want to show you a different concept. And so I want to talk about the fight for dominancy. The fight for dominancy. Now, after World War II, I shared with you that there were four uh, allies on the American side, which was USSR, uh, United States, uh, Great Britain, and China. Those were the four dominant, what they call the Big Four. And then on the other side was Germany, Italy, and Japan. Now there were also on both sides other smaller countries that were fighting with the opposing allies. But these three and these four were the dominant. Now, since uh, Hitler lost, Germany lost, which simply means that 1945, when Truman bombed, sent the atomic bomb into Japan, then Japan surrendered, and then Germany surrendered, and so now the Second World War was victorious on the side of America, USSR, Great Britain, and China. So now they are the dominant forces in the world, and every country want to be the dominant country. The only problem is whether every country can be the dominant country in the world. Now, so USSR, uh, they fell apart. They fell apart under, I believe, Reagan. They fell apart, and so now it is just simply known as Russia, with Putin being the president, prime minister, whatever he is of that. But he is still trying to get back to dominancy. That's why he's fighting in Ukraine, because he is trying to reconnect all of those countries that became countries and splitting themselves from the USSR. But he doesn't matter anymore. So we're talking about the fight for dominancy. Russia does not matter because Russia's not strong enough. Russia does not have the GDP. So Russia is not important enough. And when I talk about dominant, I'm talking about importancy. I'm talking about strength. I'm talking about influence. And so you can't be dominant if you don't have influence of the world. If you're not important or that important uh, to the world. And certainly if you're not that successful. In order to be dominant, you have to be important. You have to be successful. You have to have a strong economy. So Russia can't do that. And then Great Britain. Great Britain, for whatever reason, they cannot do that. Now, they was a part of the Big Four, but they are just not strong enough. They don't have the GDP. They don't have the importance, you know, and so they don't fit, which leaves you with the two. Leaves you with the United States of America, and it leaves you with China. Now, looking at both of these countries, uh, the GDP of the United States in 2023 was about 27, a little over 27 trillion. That's the GDP. And then the same thing with China was about 17 trillion, which simply means that the United States really is stronger than China. So naturally, the United States should have the upper hand on China as far as the fight for dominancy is concerned. One would think, right? 2024, the GDP of the United States was 28.7. So they're growing. And then the same thing with China. GDP 2024 was 18.6. So it is growing, but it is still one sided. Now, when President Trump became the president again, this time he decided that he was going to make America great again. Now, whatever you want to say about that phrase, people have different concepts about that phrase. But what I believe that President Trump is trying to do is simply dominate the world. Can I say that one again? He is simply trying to dominate the world. And so any citizens, any population, any country, the citizens of that country want to dominate the world because we're still talking about greed. But then China won't play ball because even though the United States GDP is much higher, uh, there is a great dependency on China. Let me go back now and then. After World War II, the United States started reaching out more to all of these countries and gaining uh, the alliances, and these countries started depending on the United States. But at the same time, China was fighting a different war. Even though China was in various countries and they were uh, investing in those countries, it was the United States that was winning that war of alliances, winning that war of gaining favor with other countries. And the United States and China has always been at odds with each other. They just came together because it was their best interest to fight this World War II. But as far as their competitiveness, they have always been trying to get the upper hand one of the other. The difference is that you have one uh, that is chi, which is the president, a prime minister, whatever you call him, for life. And then you have a president, President Trump is 4 years. Now that's a great difference because you have one that has to be concerned about reelection, and you have one that has no problem with being reelected because he is president for life. And then you have an autocracy on one hand, and you have a republic on the other hand, which is of the people, by the people, and for the people versus just one man. And so, even though the United States has the upper hand when it comes to GDP, China has the upper hand when it comes to longevity. And while the United States was doing all of the reaching out to alliances, somewhere down the line over the uh, stream of time, manufacturing began to leave the United States of America. We don't manufacture as we once did. Now we are simply consumers. The United States is more of a consumer country. We do, a little manufacturing here and there, but we are more of a consumer. On the other hand, China is more of a manufacturing country. So China, even though GDP is much lower than the United States, China has a better foundation upon which to stand than the United States. China is dependent upon the United States to sell what it is manufacturing. The United States is more dependent upon China to give it the merchandise, the commodity to sell. And that's why when you had these rich companies going to President Trump and saying, "Listen, our store shelves are going to be empty if you keep this 145% tariffs on China." It's not going to happen because nothing will be coming in. It's almost like an embargo now. It's not a tariff wall, it's an embargo. You are restricting anything coming from China with that type of tariffs percentage on them. And if that remains, then our shelves in the stores are going to be empty. Well, Trump says, listen, you need to be manufacturing your own. It takes a long time to set up manufacturing. We have gotten away from manufacturing. We're into just buying it, taking it home, and using it, not buying it. And even if we were going to start manufacturing, it's going to be much higher than what we could get it from China. So the tariffs would have to stay here forever to keep China's products, commodities from coming in. So it would not be a uh, do away with it every now and then. No, it would have to stay. The embargo against China's wares would have to stay in order for people to start buying America wares. And America's wares will always be higher because it costs more to produce. And that's why companies moved their companies, manufacturing companies, assembly companies, most of them, overseas, off of the United States shore. So here we are now with the fight for dominancy. One is fighting one way, and the other one is fighting the other way. And what China is saying right now, we will fight. And in my opinion, China now has the upper hand. Even though you have the so one sided GDP, China has the upper hand because China has the manufacturing. And Americans, they want what they want. We want what we want. And so now the stock market is going down. 401k is having a roller coaster ride. And the big companies, the uh, millionaires that was lining up behind President Trump knew that they was going to get another great tax cut. Now, I just heard about Elon Musk has lost 122 million, $1 billion in Facebook, some 20 billion dollars, and in other companies has lost $30 billion. They're gonna write that off. They're gonna write that off. That's all they're gonna do. Farmers are losing their uh, farms because they cannot sell their soybeans to China anymore. Well, the United States, doing President Trump's first time, bailed the farmers out. Yes, it's kind of hard times right now, but they are already lining up and sending and filling out applications so that Congress can pass a bailout package specifically for them. Now, what does that bailout package do? What does it do? They cannot sell their wares, so they have lost something. And so now they're going to get a great big check. That's what that does. It just give them a great big check to make them as much as whole as they can be made so that they can next year, next planting season, start planting again. Listen, if I have that type of deal, put tariffs on me every year, so I can get that check. That's what's going to happen with them. And then when finally the tax break comes, the big millionaires companies is going to get their reduction in taxes, which they're not paying too much anyway, but it's going to come at the expense of all of us. Remember the us and the them? It's going to come at the expense of all of us. Now, who's going to win this fight for dominancy? With the dollar being the reserve currency of the world, most commodities are being sold based on the price of the dollar. That's what that means. And when you saw the dollar falling and the euro going up, that simply means that the euro is stronger than the dollar. But no one at this point believes that the euro is going to take over the dollar position as far as being the reserve currency. The central bank now has 60% of its uh, lending power or reserves in the dollar and 20% in the euro. So that's one sided. That's not going to happen. So dominancy as far as uh, reserve currency, the dollar is there. But I'm not talking about the dollar as far as commodity or reserve currency. I'm talking about who's going to be important, who's going to be powerful, who's going to be the most influential country. And America, if America keep going the way that it is going, it is turning most countries against it. People, Canada, other countries now, they are canceling their reservations coming into the United States. They don't want to buy the imports that is coming into their country from the United States, leaving it on the shelves because they are protesting the tariffs that is being put on them. And they don't understand why someone that's supposed to be an ally would put that type of tariff on them that would make their lives miserable trying to fight China. And what China is doing is going around now trying to get the countries to align themselves with it. Bottom line, now America, Donald Trump sees that 145% tariffs is just not going to work. And these big companies is putting more pressure on him now. You got to do something about this. And so now he is saying, well, China is talking to us. China is saying, no, I'm not talking to you. Now, I'm pretty sure there's some conversation that's going on. But this is what's being put out into the world. Remember, I told you it's talking about influence. And if you can weaken one's influence, you have already won the war. And that's what they're doing. China saying, I'm not going to blink. Donald Trump is saying, I'm not going to blink. But Donald Trump has to blink. And he is blinking because he's softening his tone. What did China say? Until you soften your tone and start respecting us, we're not going to deal with you. What is Donald Trump doing? Softening his tone. He's already blinking. So we're talking about the fight for dominancy. This is not going to happen overnight. But I strongly believe that this is beginning to be the end of the dominancy of the United States of America. How far does it go? I don't know, because Trump only has 4 years, and then you're going to have another president that's going to come in that can hopefully restore a lot. And then how long is that going to take to restore? And then at that particular time, how much influence has China gained? How much strength has China gained? How much power has China gained? How much dominance has China gained? We may not see the end results in our lives, but we do see the start. We do see the middle of it. It's something, it's somewhere, it's going on. The fight for dominance. This is Clarence Williams. This is another edition of Now and Then.